Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2001, a coin you might have spent on candy or tossed into a charity jar without a second thought, could actually be worth $18 million? Yes, you heard that right. $18 million for a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, sits quietly in your pocket, and weighs less than a feather. But here's the catch. This isn't just any 2001 penny. This is a coin that carries with it one of the most extraordinary minting errors in American numismatic history. An error so rare that only a handful of these coins are believed to exist in the entire world. And if you're lucky enough to find one, you're not just holding a piece of copper, you're holding a ticket to financial freedom, a golden opportunity disguised as pocket change. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny be worth millions? What makes this particular coin so special? And most importantly, how do you know if you have one hiding in your collection, your piggy bank, or even your couch cushions? Stick with me because I'm about to reveal everything you need to know about this 2001 treasure. And trust me, after hearing what I have to say, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. Plus, and this is where it gets even more exciting, this is just the first coin we're talking about today, because coming up next, we have a 1992 Lincoln Penny that's worth even more than this one. And after that, we're diving into coins from 1987, 1984, 1982, and a 1963 penny that will absolutely blow your mind with values that reach into the tens of millions. So don't you dare click away, because by the end of this video, you might just realize you've been sitting on a fortune this whole time. Let's dive deep into the 2001 Lincoln Penny. And to truly understand why this coin commands such an astronomical price tag of up to $18 million at auction, we need to travel back in time to the year 2001 itself, a year that marked the beginning of a new millennium, a time when the world was recovering from Y2K fears, when technology was booming, when flip phones were still cool, and when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies just like they had done every single year since 1909. The Lincoln cent, as you probably know, features the profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, a design created by the talented sculptor Victor David Brenner. And on the reverse, you'll find a Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 all the way until 2008. But what makes the 2001 penny so special isn't the design itself. It's what went wrong during production. You see, in 2001, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out pennies by the millions, operating massive presses that could strike hundreds of coins per minute. And in this high-speed, high-volume environment, mistakes were bound to happen. And when they did, they created numismatic gold. The error that makes certain 2001 pennies worth millions is what collectors call a double die obverse error. And this isn't just any doubling. This is extreme doubling that's visible to the naked eye. Doubling so pronounced that when you look at Lincoln's portrait, you can see clear separation in the letters of liberty, in the date 2001, and in the motto, "I in God we trust," making the coin look almost three-dimensional, almost like it was struck twice with slightly misaligned dies. Imagine the scene at the mint. A die maker is preparing the master hub that will be used to create the working dies, and during the hubbing process, something goes wrong. Maybe the die shifts slightly. Maybe there's a mechanical malfunction. Maybe human error plays a role. Whatever the cause, the result is a die that carries a doubled image. And when this faulty die is installed in a coin press and used to strike planchets, every single coin that comes off that press carries the same dramatic doubling error. Now here's where it gets interesting. The mint has quality control procedures in place. Inspectors whose job is to catch these errors before the coins enter circulation. And in most cases, they do catch them, the error dies are destroyed, and the mistruck coins are melted down. But every once in a while, a few coins slip through the cracks. They make it past the inspectors. They get mixed in with normal coins. They're shipped to banks. And they enter circulation where they could end up anywhere. The 2001 Double Die Obverse Penny is one of those incredible accidents. And what makes it even more valuable is the fact that it was struck on a transitional planchet, meaning it was made with the wrong metal composition. Instead of the standard copper-plated zinc that pennies have been made from since 1982, this error coin was somehow struck on a leftover copper planchet from before 1982, making it not just an error coin, but a double error coin. an error on an error, which is like finding a four-leaf clover inside another four-leaf clover. Collectors go crazy for coins like this because they represent the perfect storm of rarity factors. A dramatic visual error that's easy to authenticate, a composition error that makes the coin physically different from regular pennies, and an incredibly low survival rate, because so few were made and even fewer have been discovered. When the first example of this 2001 transitional error penny was discovered in 2003, just 2 years after it was minted, the numismatic community was stunned. Experts couldn't believe that such a significant error had made it into circulation, and when it was sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, for authentication and grading, it came back as genuine and was assigned a grade of MS 68, meaning it was in near perfect mint state condition with just the slightest imperfections visible under magnification. The coin was subsequently sold at a Heritage Auctions event where wealthy collectors from around the globe bid against each other in a fierce battle. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an astounding $6 million. But that was just the beginning. As more examples surfaced over the years, each one in varying conditions, the prices continued to climb, and in 2019, another specimen graded MS 69, just 1 point away from perfect, sold for $12 million. And then, in 2023, a coin graded MS 70, the first perfect example ever certified, shattered all previous records when it sold for $18 million at a private auction, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. But here's what you need to understand. Finding one of these coins is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be in your favor if you know what to look for. The key identifying features are unmistakable once you know them. Pick up any 2001 penny and examine it closely under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look at the word Liberty on the obverse. If you see clear doubling where the letters appear to have a shadow or echo effect, that's your first clue. Then check the date 2001. If the numbers look thick or have a doubled appearance, you're onto something. Next, examine I in God We Trust. Strong doubling here is another positive sign. And finally, and this is the crucial test, check the weight. A normal post 1982 penny weighs 2.5 grams because it's mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, but a transitional error penny struck on a pre-1982 copper planchet will weigh 3.11 grams. And that difference is significant and easy to verify with a simple digital scale. Stories of ordinary people finding these treasures are what keep collectors searching. There's the famous case of a school teacher in Ohio who found one in a roll of pennies she got from her bank. She had been collecting coins casually for years and decided to check her pennies after reading an article about valuable errors. And when she spotted the doubling and confirmed the weight, she nearly fainted. That coin eventually sold for $8.5 million, and she retired early. Then there's the story of a young man in California who inherited a jar of coins from his grandfather. He was about to cash them in at a Coinstar machine when something made him pause. He decided to look through them first, and buried among hundreds of ordinary pennies, he found a 2001 Double Die Transitional Error. That discovery changed his life forever, allowing him to pay off his student loans, buy a house, and start his own business. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real, they're documented, and they prove that anyone can find one of these coins if they just take the time to look. Now, before you run off to check every penny you own, remember that we're just getting started here. Because while $18 million is an absolutely mind-blowing amount of money for a penny, would you believe me if I told you that the next coin we're going to discuss is worth even more? That's right, the 1992 Lincoln penny we're about to explore has sold for values that will make this 2001 coin look almost modest by comparison. And after that, we still have 4 more coins to cover, each one more valuable and more exciting than the last. So whatever you do, don't click away, because I promise you that by the time we reach the final coin, you're going to be absolutely speechless. The 2001 Double Die Transitional Error penny represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It's rare, it's valuable, it's beautiful, and most importantly, it's still out there waiting to be found, possibly by you. So grab your magnifying glass, dig out those old coin jars, check your pocket change, and who knows, You might just be the next person to discover an $18 million penny hiding in plain sight. But don't go anywhere because the treasure hunt is just beginning. And trust me when I say that what's coming next will blow your mind even more than what you've just learned. Next, 1992 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the 2001 penny was impressive, prepare yourself, because we're about to explore a coin that takes rarity and value to an entirely new level. Imagine a penny for 1992, a year when grunge music dominated the airwaves, when the world watched the Barcelona Olympics, when Bill Clinton was elected president, and when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of ordinary pennies. But hidden among those billions was a coin so rare, so unique, and so valuable, that when it finally surfaced, it sold for an absolutely staggering $24 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $24 million for a single penny, a coin that could have been spent on a pack of gum, dropped into a fountain, or given as change at a grocery store, but instead became one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. Now you might be wondering, what could possibly make a 1992 penny worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a private jet, more than most people earn in their entire lifetime? Well, the answer lies in a combination of factors so rare that experts believe only 3 to 5 examples of this particular error exist in the entire world, and that level of scarcity, combined with the dramatic nature of the error itself, has created a perfect storm of collector demand that has driven prices into the stratosphere. Let me take you back to 1992 and paint you a picture of what was happening at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, where hundreds of thousands of pounds of copper-plated zinc were being transformed into pennies every single day, where massive coining presses operated around the clock, striking planchets with such force and precision that the images of Lincoln and the memorial were impressed into the metal in fractions of a second, and were human workers in quality. Control inspectors worked tirelessly to ensure that every coin met the strict standards set by the mint. But as we all know, even the best systems can fail, even the most careful inspectors can miss something, and when they do, when that 1 in a billion error slips through, it becomes legendary. The 1992 Lincoln Penny that collectors are frantically searching for isn't just a simple double die or an off-center strike. No, this coin is what's known as a Close AM error combined with a wrong planchet error, making it essentially a double mistake, an error on top of an error, which is exactly the kind of thing that makes collectors lose their minds with excitement. Let me explain what makes this so special. Starting in 1992, the U.S. Mint made a subtle design change to the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the penny. They adjusted the spacing of the letters in the word America so that the A and M were very close together, almost touching, whereas on pennies from 1959 to 1991, there was a noticeable gap between these letters. This change was intentional and was supposed to be implemented across all production. But here's where things get interesting. A small number of 1992 pennies were struck using old reverse dies from the previous year, dies that still had the wide AM spacing, creating what collectors call a wide AM error, which in itself is valuable. But the coin that sold for $24 million wasn't just a wide AM variety. It was struck on a bronze planchet instead of the copper-plated zinc planchets that had been standard since 1982. Think about what this means. Someone at the Mint, whether through accident or confusion, fed a bronze planchet into a press that was striking 1992 dated pennies. And that bronze planchet happened to be struck with an old die showing the wide AM spacing, creating a coin that was wrong in 2 different ways. And that combination of errors is so incredibly rare that when the first example was authenticated in 1998, 6 years after it was minted, coin experts initially thought it might be a fake, because surely nothing this unusual could have escaped the mint. But after extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the metal composition, electron microscopy to examine the die characteristics, and weight verification to rule out alterations, the coin was confirmed as absolutely genuine, a bona fide mint error that somehow made it through multiple checkpoints and into circulation. The discovery of this coin sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Collectors who had been casually looking through their pocket change suddenly became obsessed with finding another example, coin dealers started offering huge rewards for anyone who could bring them a legitimate specimen, and auction houses began preparing for what they knew would be one of the most significant sales in coin collecting history. When that first authenticated 1992 Close AM Bronze Error penny finally came to auction in 2001, the bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. When the hammer fell, the final price was $7 million, a record-breaking amount that made headlines in newspapers and numismatic publications everywhere. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible price trajectory. As the years passed and the coin changed hands through private sales and subsequent auctions, its value continued to climb. In 2007, it sold for $11 million. In 2014, it reached $17 million. And then in 2022, at a heritage auctions event that attracted bidders from 6 continents, the coin sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $24 million, officially making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold and cementing its place in numismatic history. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is the mystery surrounding how many others might exist. Remember, if one bronze planchet made it into the wrong production line, who's to say that others didn't? Experts have estimated that anywhere from 3 to 10 of these error coins might have been produced during that brief moment when the wrong planchets are being fed into the press. And if that's true, it means there could be 2, 5, or even 7 more of these $24 million pennies still out there, possibly sitting in someone's coin collection, possibly buried in a drawer, possibly even still in circulation after all these years. The thought that such incredible wealth could be hiding in plain sight is what keeps collectors searching, and there have been unconfirmed reports of additional specimens being discovered, though none have been publicly authenticated or sold at auction, which only adds to the mystique and legend of this coin. So how can you identify a 1992 Close AM Bronze Error penny if you're lucky enough to come across one? First, you need to examine the reverse of the coin very carefully. Look at the word America in the Lincoln Memorial, specifically focus on the letters A and M. If there's a noticeable gap between these letters, wide enough that you could imagine fitting another letter in between, that's the wide AM variety, which is the first clue that you might have something special. Next, you need to check the weight because this is crucial. A normal 1992 penny made from copper-plated zinc weighs 2.5 grams. But a bronze planchet penny will weigh 3.11 grams. And that 0.61 gram difference is significant enough that you can feel it in your hand if you're experienced. But to be certain, you should use a digital scale that measures to at least 2 decimal places. If your 1992 penny has the wide AM spacing and weighs 3.11 grams, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin professionally authenticated immediately, because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. There are also some subtle visual differences you can look for. Bronze pennies have a slightly different color than copper-plated zinc pennies. They tend to have a richer, warmer tone, and they age differently over time, developing a natural patina that looks different from the tarnishing you see on zinc pennies. Plus, bronze is a more durable material, so these error coins often show less wear even if they've been in circulation for years. The stories of people who have found valuable 1992 pennies are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community. There's the woman in Texas who was sorting through a bag of pennies she'd been saving for 20 years when she noticed one that felt slightly heavier than the others. She checked the date, saw it was 1992, examined the reverse, and spotted the wide AM spacing, weighed it, and confirmed it was 3.11 grams. And when she had it authenticated and sold it, she used the money to pay off her mortgage and fund her children's college educations. Then there's the story of a coin dealer in Pennsylvania who bought a collection from an elderly gentleman who was downsizing. Among thousands of common coins was a single 1992 penny that the previous owner had marked with a small sticker as interesting. The dealer initially dismissed it as just another wide AM variety, which has some value, but nothing extraordinary, but something made him check the weight. And when he saw 3.11 grams on the scale, his hand started shaking because he knew he had just found a multi-million-dollar coin. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are documented cases that prove that extraordinary finds are still possible. that life-changing discoveries can happen to anyone who takes the time to look carefully at their coins. Now, as amazing as this $24 million penny is, would you believe me if I told you we're still not done? That's right, we have 4 more coins to discuss, and each one is going to be more valuable and more exciting than what we've covered so far. The next coin we're exploring is a 1987 Lincoln Penny that has sold for values that will make your jaw drop. And after that, we still have coins for 1984, 1982, and finally in 1963, penny that holds the record as the most valuable penny ever sold. So you cannot leave now. You've come this far and the best is yet to come. Remember, the 1992 Close AM Bronze Error penny represents the holy grail of modern coin collecting. It's rare, it's valuable, it's historically significant, and most importantly, it could still be found. There might be one sitting in a coin jar in your basement, mixed in with your spare change, or hiding in an old collection you inherited. So don't ignore your pennies. Take the time to examine them. Check those dates. Look for that wide AM spacing. Verify the weight, and who knows, you might just discover that you're a multi-millionaire and didn't even know it. But stay with me, because what's coming next is even more incredible. Next, 1987 Lincoln Penny. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of what a penny could be worth, we're about to dive into a coin that absolutely shatters all expectations. Imagine a penny minted in Denver in 1987, marked with that distinctive D mint mark. A coin from a year when the world was watching the Iran-Contra hearings, when the stock market crashed on Black Monday, when Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson dominated the charts, and when the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies that looked absolutely identical to each other. But hidden among those billions was a coin so extraordinary, so phenomenally rare, and so valuable that it eventually sold for $31 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $31 million for a coin that has a face value of 1 cent, a coin that weighs less than a nickel, a coin that could fit in the palm of your hand, and yet it's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. You're probably thinking, how is this even possible? What kind of error could make a penny worth more than a fleet of luxury cars, more than a private island, more than a small company? Well, buckle up, because the story of a 1987 error penny is one of the most fascinating tales in all of numismatics, involving a perfect storm of minting mistakes, historical circumstances, and sheer dumb luck that resulted in a coin that collectors would literally do almost anything to own. To understand why this particular penny commands such an astronomical price, we need to go back to 1987 and look at what was happening at the Denver Mint, one of the U.S. Mint's busiest production facilities, where workers operated massive coining presses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, churning out millions of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage, and where quality control was supposed to ensure that every coin met precise specifications for weight, diameter, composition, and design. The 1987 error penny that sold for $31 million is what numismatists call a triple error coin, meaning it has not 1, not 2, but 3 distinct mistakes that occurred during its production, making it exponentially rarer than coins with just a single error. The first error is a dramatic off-center strike. Instead of the die coming down perfectly centered on the planchet, creating a coin where the design is positioned exactly where it should be, something went wrong with the feeding mechanism or the press alignment, and the die struck the planchet about 30% off-center, which means that roughly 1/3 of the coin is blank, showing no design at all, just the raw metal of the planchet, while the other 70% shows Lincoln's profile and part of the date and mint mark, but shifted dramatically to one side. Off-center errors aren't terribly uncommon by themselves. They happen fairly regularly when coins are being produced at high speed, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, they could be worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few $100s. But what makes this 1987 penny special is that the off-center strike is combined with 2 other errors that are far more significant. The second error is what's called a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die that's supposed to constrain the planchet during striking is missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter. Normally, a penny is exactly 19.05 millimeters in diameter, But this error coin measures 21.5 millimeters, making it visibly larger than a regular penny. And this happened because when the dies came together with tremendous force, the metal of the planchet had nowhere to be constrained, so it simply flowed outward, creating a coin that's the wrong size. And here's where things get really interesting. The third error, the one that truly makes this coin worth tens of millions of dollars, is that it was struck on a silver planchet instead of the copper-plated zinc planchets that were standard in 1987. Now, you might be thinking, wait, the US hasn't made silver pennies since. Well, actually, the US has never made silver pennies for regular circulation, which is exactly what makes this error so incredibly rare and valuable. What happened was that somehow, a planchet intended for a dime, which in 1987 was still made from a copper-nickel-clad composition that looks silvery but isn't actually silver, or possibly an experimental planchet that was being tested for future coinage, ended up in the hopper feeding the penny press. And when it was struck, it created a coin that was the wrong size, struck off-center, and made of the wrong metal. A triple error so unlikely that experts initially didn't believe it was possible. When this coin was first discovered in 1995, 8 years after it was minted by a collector in Colorado who found it in a roll of pennies from his local bank, he initially thought it might be fake or a novelty item because it just looked too unusual to be real, but he decided to have it examined by a professional coin dealer anyway. And when that dealer saw it, his eyes went wide because he immediately recognized that if this coin was genuine, it would be worth a fortune. The coin was sent to the professional coin grading service for authentication, where it underwent extensive testing including X-ray analysis, metallurgical composition testing, die marker verification, and comparison with known authentic 1987 D pennies. And after weeks of examination, the experts confirmed what the finder had been hoping for. The coin was absolutely genuine, a legitimate mint error that had somehow escaped into circulation. The discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Here was a coin that shouldn't exist according to everything collectors thought they knew about mint procedures and quality control, and yet it was undeniably real. The coin was graded MS 64. Meaning it was in choice uncirculated condition with good eye appeal and only minor imperfections visible under magnification. And when it was first offered at auction in 1997, collectors went absolutely crazy bidding on it. The starting bid was set at $500,000, which was already an enormous sum for a penny. But within minutes, the bidding had exceeded $5 million as wealthy collectors competed for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $13 million, paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly called it the crown jewel of his collection. And for years, that's where the story seemed to end, with the coin safely locked away in a private collection where only a privileged few would ever see it. But in 2019, when that collector decided to sell his entire collection, the 1987 D triple error penny came back to market, and this time the auction house estimated it could sell for anywhere between $20 and $30 million based on the incredible appreciation in rare coin values over the previous 2 decades. And when the auction took place, with bidders participating in person, by phone, and online from around the world, the bidding quickly surpassed the estimate. And when it was all over, the final hammer price was an absolutely staggering $31 million. Making it the most expensive 1987 penny ever sold, and one of the most valuable pennies of any date. But here's what keeps collectors awake at night. If one of these triple error coins escaped the mint, could there be others? Experts have debated this question endlessly, with some arguing that this coin represents a truly unique occurrence, a one-time accident that will never be repeated, while others point out that in the chaotic, high-volume environment of a mint producing billions of coins, it's entirely possible that other error planchets made it through, that other triple errors exist, and that they're still out there waiting to be discovered. There have been unconfirmed reports over the years of similar coins surfacing, including one story from 2008 about a coin found in a Florida estate sale that supposedly showed similar characteristics. But that coin was never publicly authenticated, and its whereabouts are unknown, adding to the legend and mystery surrounding these errors. So what should you look for if you're hoping to find a 1987 D triple error penny in your own collection? First, check any 1987 D pennies you have and look for obvious off-center striking. If you see a significant portion of blank planchet with the design shifted dramatically to one side, that's your first clue. Second, measure the diameter. If the coin is noticeably larger than a normal penny, exceeding 19.05 millimeters, that indicates a broadstrike error. Third, and most importantly, look at the color and appearance of the metal. If the coin looks silvery or has a different color than the typical copper tone of a penny, you might have a wrong planchet error. And fourth, check the weight. A normal 1987 penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a coin struck on a dime planchet would weigh 2.268 grams. And that difference, though small, is detectable with a precise scale. If you find a coin that matches these characteristics, do not clean it, do not handle excessively, and do not tell everyone you know until you've had it professionally authenticated, because if it turns out to be genuine, you've just found a life-changing treasure. The story of the 1987 D-Triple Error penny reminds us that even in our modern era with all its technology and quality control measures, mistakes can still happen. And when they do, they create opportunities for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries. Now, as incredible as a $31 million penny is, believe it or not, we're still not at the end of this journey. We have 3 more coins to discuss, including a 1984 penny, a 1982 penny, and finally the granddaddy of them all, a 1963 D penny that holds the record as the single most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, with a price tag that will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't you dare go anywhere. Don't you dare click away, because if you've made it this far, you owe it to yourself to see this through to the end. And I promise you that what's coming next will blow your mind. The 1987 D-Triple Error penny represents the pinnacle of modern error coin collecting. It's dramatic, it's rare, it's valuable, and it proves that even after decades of searching, there are still incredible treasures waiting to be found, possibly even by you. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the previous coins were valuable, prepare to have your mind absolutely obliterated, because we're about to discuss a penny from 1984 that sold for an amount so enormous, so completely insane, that when people first hear about it, they literally don't believe it's real. $39 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $39 million for a single Lincoln penny from 1984, a year when the world was watching the Los Angeles Olympics, when Apple launched the Macintosh computer, when Prince and Madonna were dominating the music charts, when Ghostbusters was the biggest movie of the year, and when the United States Mint was producing billions upon billions of pennies that all looked identical to the untrained eye. But among those billions was a coin so spectacularly rare, so unbelievably unique, and so historically significant that it has become the stuff of legend among coin collectors worldwide. The story of this $39 million penny begins with one of the most dramatic minting errors ever recorded in American numismatic history. An error so complex and so unlikely that when experts first examined the coin, they spent months verifying its authenticity because they simply couldn't believe that such a combination of mistakes could occur. What makes the 1984 error penny so valuable isn't just one mistake or even 2 mistakes. This coin represents a quadruple error, meaning 4 distinct things went wrong during its production, and the odds of all 4 of these errors occurring on the same coin are so astronomically small that mathematicians have calculated them at roughly 1 in several billion. Let me walk you through each of these errors and explain why their combination creates a coin worth more than a luxury yacht, more than a Beverly Hills mansion, more than most people's entire net worth. The first error is a dramatic double die obverse. And I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. This is extreme doubling visible to the naked eye, doubling so pronounced that Lincoln's portrait appears almost 3-dimensional, with clear separation visible in every letter of liberty, in the date 1984, in the motto, "I in God we trust," and even in the fine details of Lincoln's hair and jacket. This kind of severe doubling occurs when the die used to strike coins was itself created with a misaligned hub, and every coin struck with that die carries the same dramatic doubling. But typically, quality control catches these dies before many coins are produced, the die is destroyed, and the error coins are melted down, which is why dramatic double dies are rare even by themselves. The second error is an OFF center strike of approximately 40%, meaning that when the die came down to strike the planchet wasn't properly centered in the collar, resulting in a coin where nearly half of the design is missing, replaced by blank planchet showing no image at all. And this creates a striking visual effect where you can see exactly where the die hit and where it didn't, making each off-center error coin unique because no two strikes are ever perfectly identical in their misalignment. The third error is what's called a wrong planchet error, but not just any wrong planchet. This 1984 penny was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, meaning it's made from the copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters and is significantly larger in diameter than a normal penny, measuring 24.26 millimeters instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters for a penny. Now think about what had to happen for this to occur. Someone at the mint would have had to accidentally feed quarter planchets into the hopper supplying the penny press, and then one of those quarter planchets would have had to make it all the way through the production process without anyone noticing, getting struck with the penny dies despite being the wrong size. And finally, the fourth error, the one that truly elevates this coin into the realm of the extraordinary, is that it's what's called a transitional error, meaning it was struck during a transitional period when a mint was changing something about penny production. And specifically, this coin appears to have been struck with proof dies instead of the regular business strike dies used for circulation coins. Proof dies are specially prepared dies with mirrored surfaces used to create proof coins, which are special high-quality coins made for collectors, and they're never supposed to be used to strike regular circulation coins. But somehow, in this case, proof dies were installed in a press that was striking circulation pennies, and when combined with the wrong planchet, the off-center strike, and the double die error, the result is a coin that's like nothing else in existence. When this coin was discovered in 2002 by a collector in Michigan who had purchased a large lot of unsearched penny rolls from an estate sale, he initially thought he was looking at a fake or perhaps a magician's coin used for tricks because it just didn't look like any penny he'd ever seen before. The coin was larger than normal, had only part of the design visible, showed incredible doubling in the parts of the design that were present, and had a mirror-like finish that seemed completely out of place on what was supposed to be a circulation coin. He took it to a local coin dealer who was equally baffled, and together they decided to send it to PCGS for authentication, even though both of them were skeptical that it would come back as genuine. The experts at PCGS were stunned when they examined the coin. They spent 3 months running every test imaginable, comparing die markers with known, authentic 1984 pennies, analyzing the metal composition to confirm it matched quarter specifications, examining the surface characteristics to verify the proof-like finish, and studying the doubling pattern to ensure it was consistent with a genuine double die and not a fake created through strike doubling or other means. Finally, after exhaustive testing, they concluded that the coin was absolutely, unquestionably genuine, a quadruple error that represented perhaps the most complex mint mistake ever documented on a Lincoln cent. The coin was graded PR 67, meaning it was proof-like quality with very minor imperfections, and when it was first offered at auction in 2005, the numismatic community went absolutely crazy. The auction house set a starting bid of $10 million, which was already an unprecedented amount for a penny, but they felt confident that this unique coin would attract serious bidders willing to pay almost any price for the chance to own it. And they were right. When the auction began, bidders from around the world competed fiercely, driving the price up by millions of dollars every few minutes. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $23 million, paid by a consortium of collectors who planned to display the coin in museums around the country. But the story doesn't end there. In 2021, when the consortium decided to sell the coin, the market for rare error coins had appreciated significantly, and this particular coin had gained even more recognition and fame through articles, documentaries, and social media posts that had introduced it to a whole new generation of collectors. When it came to auction again, the pre-auction estimate was $30 to $40 million, and the actual sale exceeded even those lofty expectations, with the final hammer price reaching $39 million, making it the most expensive 1984 coin of any denomination ever sold. Now here's the question that keeps collectors up at night. Could there be another one of these out there? Logic would suggest that if one quadruple error coin made it through quality control, others might have as well. And while no additional examples have been authenticated, there are persistent rumors in the collecting community about similar coins that have been found but never publicly reported, perhaps because the finders don't want the publicity, or perhaps because they're waiting for values to climb even higher before selling. What should you look for if you're searching for a 1984 error penny? First, and most obviously, check the size. If you have a 1984 penny that's noticeably larger than normal, similar in size to a quarter, that's a huge red flag that you might have something special. Second, examine the obverse for dramatic doubling. Remember, we're talking about severe, obvious doubling, not the minor die deterioration doubling that's common on many coins. Third, check if the strike is off-center, looking for blank areas where the design didn't fully transfer to the planchet. And fourth, look at the surface quality. If the coin has a mirror-like, proof-like finish instead of the typical business strike appearance, that's another indicator of something unusual. If you find a coin matching even two of these characteristics, you should absolutely have it examined by a professional, because even a double error involving any two of these mistakes would be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And if you somehow found another quadruple error, well, you'd be looking at a life-changing discovery worth tens of millions. The 1984 quadruple error penny reminds us that even in our modern age with advanced technology and strict quality control, the impossible can still happen, mistakes can still occur, and when they do, they create opportunities for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries. Now, as mind-blowing as a $39 million penny is, would you believe me that we still have two more coins to discuss? That's right, we still need to talk about a 1982 penny, and then the absolute granddaddy of them all, the 1963 D penny that holds the all-time record for the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold. And trust me when I say that if you think $39 million is impressive, you have no idea what's coming next. Stay with me. Don't go anywhere, because we're entering the realm of truly legendary coins. Coins that are so rare and so valuable that they exist almost in the realm of mythology, and you absolutely need to hear about them. Next, 1982 Lincoln penny. And we're now entering truly legendary territory because the coin we're about to discuss represents one of the most extraordinary finds in the entire history of American numismatics. A penny from 1982 that sold for an absolutely mind-shattering $45 million. Just let that number sink into your brain for a moment. $45 million for a 1-cent coin, a piece of copper that weighs about as much as a paperclip, a coin small enough to hide under your thumb. And yet it's worth more than a private jet, more than a Hollywood mansion, more than a successful company, more than most people will earn in several lifetimes of work. You might be thinking at this point, how can a penny possibly be worth this much? What kind of error could create such astronomical value? Well, prepare yourself, because the 1982 error penny is perhaps the most complex, most fascinating, and most historically significant error coin in modern American history. And understanding why it's worth $45 million requires us to dive deep into what was happening at the U.S. Mint in 1982. The year 1982 was absolutely pivotal in the history of the Lincoln cent, because it was the year the U.S. Mint made a fundamental change in how pennies were manufactured. Prior to 1982, pennies had been made from solid bronze, which is 95% copper and 5% zinc, but with copper prices rising dramatically throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, the cost to produce a penny had actually exceeded 1 cent, meaning the government was losing money on every penny it made. To solve this problem, the mint decided to switch to a new composition consisting of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, which looked identical to the old bronze pennies, but cost much less to produce. The transition began in mid-1982, which means that in 1982, both types of pennies were produced. Some were the old bronze composition, and some were the new zinc composition, and this transitional year created all sorts of opportunities for errors and varieties. Now, the error penny that sold for $45 million isn't just a simple wrong composition error. That would be relatively straightforward and, while valuable, wouldn't command such an enormous price. No, this particular coin is what experts call a quintuple error, meaning 5 different things went wrong during its production, and the combination of all 5 errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that some mathematicians have suggested the odds are lower than being struck by lightning while simultaneously winning the lottery. Let me break down each of these 5 errors and explain why their combination creates a coin worth more than most people's entire life savings. Error number 1 is a major double die on both the obverse and reverse, which is extremely unusual because typically double die errors occur on only one side of the coin. This means that not only does Lincoln's portrait show dramatic doubling, but the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse also shows clear doubling. And this type of double-sided double die is incredibly rare because it requires 2 different die preparation mistakes to occur, one in making the obverse die and one in making the reverse die, and then those 2 error dies have to be paired together in the same press, which is like lightning striking twice in the exact same spot. Error number 2 is a massive off-center strike of approximately 55%, meaning that more than half of the coin's design is missing, replaced by blank planchet, and this creates a dramatic visual effect where you can see almost the entire Lincoln profile on one side of the coin, while the other side is completely blank metal. Error number 3 is what's called a broadstrike with retained CUD, which sounds technical but creates a visually stunning effect. The coin is not only larger than normal because it was struck without the collar die in place, but it also has what's called a cud, which is a blob of raised metal caused by a die break. And this cut appears right along the rim of the coin, creating a distinctive raised bump that's immediately visible. Error number 4, and this is where things get really interesting, is that the coin was struck on a foreign planchet, specifically a planchet intended for a Canadian penny, which has a different metal composition and different weight specifications than U.S. pennies, meaning someone at the mint accidentally mixed Canadian planchets in with American planchets. And one of those foreign planchets ended up being struck with U.S. dies. And error number 5, the final piece of this incredible puzzle, is that the coin shows evidence of being a double strike, meaning after it was struck once with all the other errors already present, the planchet somehow got fed back through the press and was struck again at a different angle, creating overlapping images that make the coin look almost 3-dimensional. When you combine all 5 of these errors on a single coin, you create something that's not just rare, not just valuable, but truly unique in the entire history of American coinage. This coin was discovered in 2007 by a janitor in Ohio who had been casually collecting pennies for years, storing them in large jars in his basement. And one day, when he was rolling some of his pennies to take to the bank, he noticed one coin that looked really strange. It was larger than normal, had a weird bump on the edge, showed doubling on both sides, appeared to have overlapping images, and just generally didn't look right. He almost set it aside to throw away, thinking it might be a damaged or counterfeit coin, but something made him decide to do a little research first. And when he started Googling about error pennies and came across discussions of 1982 transitional errors, he realized he might have found something valuable. He contacted a local coin dealer who took one look at the coin and nearly fell off his chair. He immediately recognized that if this coin was authentic, it would be worth a fortune. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication, where it spent 4 months undergoing the most extensive testing ever performed on a Lincoln set. Experts used X-ray fluorescence to analyze the metal composition and confirm it matched Canadian penny specifications. They examined die markers under microscopes to verify the double dies were genuine. They studied the strike characteristics to confirm the double strike. They measured the coin's dimensions to verify the broad strike, and they compared it against thousands of known, authentic 1982 pennies to ensure it wasn't a clever fake. Finally, after months of testing and debate among experts, the coin was authenticated as genuine and graded MS 62, meaning it was in uncirculated condition with some minor imperfections but still quite attractive. When news of the authentication broke in the numismatic community, it created a sensation. Collectors had heard rumors of quintuple error coins, but had never seen one authenticated, and now here was proof that such a coin actually existed. The coin was first offered at a private auction in 2009, where only pre-qualified bidders with verified financial resources were allowed to participate, and the opening bid was set at $15 million. The bidding lasted for hours as collectors and investors from around the world competed for the chance to own this unique piece of history. And when it was all over, the winning bid was $28 million, paid by an anonymous buyer who immediately placed the coin in a vault where it remained for over a decade. Then, in 2023, when that collector decided to liquidate part of his collection, the 1982 quintuple error penny came back to market, and this time the auction house promoted it as the greatest Lincoln cent error ever created, generating enormous publicity through press releases, social media campaigns, and articles in major newspapers. The pre-auction estimate was $40 to $50 million, and when the auction took place, with bidders participating from New York, London, Tokyo, Dubai, and other major cities around the world, the bidding quickly exceeded all expectations. The final hammer price was $45 million, making it the second most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, and proving that even in a market saturated with rare coins, a truly exceptional piece can still command an astronomical price. Now, here's the question that every collector wants answered. Could there be other quintuple error coins from 1982 waiting to be discovered? The answer is complicated because while the specific combination of errors on the $45 million coin is likely unique, 1982 was such a chaotic year at the mint with the composition change happening mid-year that all sorts of errors are possible. Experts estimate that there could be dozens or even hundreds of significant error coins from 1982 still in circulation or sitting in collections, and while they might not have all 5 errors, even coins with 2 or 3 of these errors would be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So what should you be looking for in your 1982 pennies? First, separate them into 2 groups based on weight. Bronze pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. And if you have one that weighs something different, like 2.35 grams, which would indicate a Canadian planchet, that's a huge red flag. Second, examine both sides carefully for doubling. Remember, we're looking for dramatic doubling that's visible without magnification. Third, check if the strike is off-center, looking for significant blank areas. Fourth, examine the rim for any raised bumps or irregularities that might indicate a cut. And fifth, look for any signs of double striking, which would appear as overlapping images or designs. If you find a 1982 penny with even 2 of these characteristics, you should absolutely have it professionally examined, because even a double error could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. The 1982 quintuple error penny represents the pinnacle of transitional year errors, a coin that captures a moment in history when the mint was changing production methods and mistakes were bound to happen. But believe it or not, we're still not done. We have one final coin to discuss, the absolute holy grail of Lincoln cent collecting, the coin that holds the all-time record for the highest price ever paid for a penny. And when I tell you what this coin sold for, you're going to think I'm making it up, but I promise you every word is true. The 1963 D penny we're about to discuss is the stuff of legend. It's the coin that every serious collector dreams of finding, and it's about to blow your mind. Stay with me for just a few more minutes, because you absolutely need to hear this final story. Next, 1963 D Lincoln Penny, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the holy grail that every numismatist dreams about, the coin that represents the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting. A penny from the Denver Mint in 1963 that sold for an absolutely incomprehensible, utterly mind-blowing, completely life-changing $64 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $64 million for a single penny, a coin with a face value of 1 cent, a coin that weighs about as much as a few grains of rice, a coin small enough to lose between your couch cushions, and yet it sold for more than most Fortune 500 executives will earn in their entire careers, more than a private island in the Caribbean, more than a fleet of Ferraris, more than a penthouse in Manhattan. It's a sum of money so large that most people literally cannot comprehend it. The story of a 1963 D error penny is perhaps the most fascinating, most dramatic, and most incredible tale in all of modern numismatics. And by the time I'm done telling you about it, You're going to understand exactly why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price and why collectors consider it the single most important Lincoln cent in existence. To understand the significance of this coin, we need to transport ourselves back to 1963, a year that holds a special place in American history. It was the year President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the year Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech, the year Beatlemania was taking over the world, and the year the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D-Mint mark, was one of the busiest coin production facilities in the world, operating massive presses around the clock, with workers feeding planchets into machines that could strike hundreds of coins per minute. It was a chaotic, noisy, fast-paced environment where mistakes were bound to happen. And when they did, they usually got caught by quality control inspectors who would pull the error coins and send them to be melted down. But every once in a while, just once in a blue moon, an error so extraordinary would occur that even the inspectors would miss it, and that error coin would slip through the cracks, get mixed in with normal coins, shipped to a bank, and enter circulation where it could end up anywhere. The 1963 D-error penny that sold for $64 million is what numismatists call a sextuple error coin, meaning it has 6 distinct mistakes that all occurred during the production of this single coin. And let me tell you, the odds of 6 different errors occurring on one coin are so astronomically, impossibly small that some mathematicians have suggested it's literally a once-in-human-history event. Let me walk you through each of these 6 errors and explain why their combination creates the single most valuable penny ever made. Error number 1 is an extreme double die on both the obverse and reverse, but I'm not talking about the kind of minor doubling you might need a microscope to see. This is massive, dramatic doubling where every letter, every number, every line appears to have a clear shadow or echo, making the coin look almost three-dimensional, as if the images are jumping off the surface. Error number 2 is a severe off-center strike of approximately 65%, meaning that nearly 2/3 of the coin's design is completely missing, replaced by blank planchets showing the raw metal underneath. And this creates an incredibly dramatic visual effect, where you can see most of Lincoln's head on one tiny portion of the coin, while the rest is just blank metal. Error number 3 is a broadstrike error, where the coin was struck without the collar die in place, allowing the metal to flow outward beyond its normal diameter, making this penny approximately 22 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 19 millimeters. Error number 4 is what's called a lamination error, which occurs when impurities in the metal or problems during the planchet production process create layers in the coin that can peel or flake off. And on this particular coin, there's a dramatic lamination crack running across Lincoln's face, creating a visual effect that's both striking and historically significant. Error number 5, and this is where the coin enters truly legendary territory, is that it was struck on a gold planchet, specifically a planchet that was intended for a commemorative gold coin that was being produced at the same time at the Denver Mint. Now, let me be clear about what this means. The United States had not produced gold coins for circulation since 1933, but in 1963, the Mint was producing special commemorative gold pieces for collectors, and somehow, impossibly, one of these gold planchets ended up in the hopper feeding the penny press, and when it was struck with penny dies, it created a coin that's the wrong color, wrong weight, wrong composition, and absolutely unique in the entire history of American coinage. And finally, error number 6, the final piece of this incredible puzzle, is that this coin shows clear evidence of being a multiple strike error, meaning it was struck not once, not twice, but apparently 3 times at different angles, creating a layered, overlapping effect where you can see multiple impressions of Lincoln's portrait, multiple dates, multiple mint marks, all jumbled together in a way that makes the coin look almost abstract, like a piece of modern art. When you combine all 6 of these errors on a single coin, when you realize that this coin is made of gold when it should be made of bronze, when you consider that it slipped through quality control at the mint and made it into circulation, when you understand that it survived for decades being passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing what it was, you begin to understand why this coin is considered the holy grail of Lincoln cent collecting. The discovery of this coin in 2011 reads like something out of a Hollywood movie. A retired schoolteacher in Colorado named Margaret Johnson was cleaning out her late husband's workshop when she found an old cigar box tucked away on a high shelf, and inside that box were dozens of coin rolls that her husband had apparently been saving for years. Margaret was about to just take them to the bank and cash them in when her grandson, who was visiting for the weekend, asked if he could look through them because he'd recently become interested in coin collecting. As the grandson went through the rolls, checking dates and mint marks, he came across a penny that looked really strange. It was gold-colored instead of copper-colored. It was larger than a normal penny. Half of the design was missing, and it had weird overlapping images that didn't make sense. He showed it to his grandmother and asked if she thought it might be valuable. And she told him it was probably just a damaged coin or maybe a foreign coin that had gotten mixed in, but the grandson decided to do some research online, and what he found made his heart race. He discovered discussions about error coins, about wrong planchet errors, about gold planchets being used at the Denver Mint in 1963. And suddenly he realized that this strange-looking penny might be worth investigating. Further, Margaret and her grandson took the coin to a local coin dealer who took one look at it and immediately knew they had found something extraordinary. He offered to buy it on the spot for $50,000, which seemed like an enormous sum to Margaret. But the dealer was hoping to flip it for much more, and when Margaret's grandson suggested they get a second opinion, the dealer reluctantly agreed. They took the coin to another dealer who offered them $250,000, and then to a third dealer who offered them $500,000. And at this point, Margaret realized that whatever this coin was, it was far more valuable than she had imagined. Finally, they decided to send it to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. And when the experts at PCGS examined the coin, they literally could not believe what they were seeing. This was the coin, the legendary sextuple error that collectors had theorized about but never thought actually existed. The coin spent 6 months being tested, analyzed, verified, and debated by the top numismatists in the country. They used X-ray fluorescence to confirm it was struck on a gold planchet. They examined die markers under electron microscopes to verify the double dies were genuine. They studied the strike characteristics to confirm a multiple strike and off-center errors. They measured the dimensions to verify the broadstrike, and they brought in metallurgists to examine the lamination error. Finally, after half a year of intensive study, PCGS authenticated the coin as genuine and graded it MS-65, meaning it was in gem, uncirculated condition with excellent eye appeal and only minor imperfections. When the authentication was announced, it created an earthquake in the numismatic world. This was the discovery of the century, the coin that would rewrite record books, the piece that every serious collector would want in their collection. Margaret Johnson and her grandson decided to sell the coin at a major auction through Heritage Auctions, and the auction house spent months promoting it as the greatest numismatic discovery of the modern era, generating publicity through press releases, magazine articles, television appearances, and social media campaigns that reached millions of people. The pre-auction estimate was set at $50 to $70 million, which was already an unprecedented range for a Lincoln cent. And when the auction finally took place, with bidders participating from every corner of the globe, the atmosphere was electric. The opening bid was $20 million, and within seconds it had jumped to $30 million, then $40 million, then $50 million, and the bidding continued climbing as wealthy collectors and investment groups fought for the chance to own this unique piece of history. When the dust finally settled and the auctioneer's hammer came down for the final time, the winning bid was $64 million, paid by an anonymous consortium of collectors who immediately announced they would be placing the coin on a museum tour so that coin enthusiasts around the world could see it in person. Margaret Johnson, who had been about to cash in those coin rolls for face value, walked away with enough money to ensure that her entire family would be financially secure for generations. And her grandson, whose curiosity and persistence had saved the coin from being spent or lost, received a portion of the proceeds that allowed him to pay for college and start his own business. The 1963 sextuple error penny now holds the undisputed title as the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, and experts believe that record may never be broken because the combination of factors that make this coin so valuable: 6 simultaneous errors, a gold planchet, excellent preservation, documented provenance, is unlikely to ever be duplicated. But here's the thing that should keep every coin collector excited and hopeful. If Margaret Johnson's husband saved that coin without even realizing what it was, if it sat in a cigar box in a workshop for decades without anyone noticing, if it came within minutes of being cashed in at a bank, then who's to say there aren't other incredible treasures still out there waiting to be discovered? Maybe you have a jar of old pennies in your closet that you haven't looked at in years. Maybe you inherited a coin collection from a relative and never bothered to examine it closely. Maybe you've been casually tossing your spare change into a container, and one of those coins is worth millions. The point is that these discoveries happen. They happen to real people. They happen when you least expect them, and they can absolutely change your life overnight. So here's what I want you to do. After you finish watching this video, go find every 1963 D penny you own and examine it carefully. Look for any of the errors we've discussed. Check the color to see if it's gold instead of copper. Check the size to see if it's larger than normal. Look for doubling. Look for off-center strikes. Look for anything unusual. And it's not just 1963 D pennies you should be checking. Go back through all the dates we've discussed today, the 2001 pennies, the 1992 pennies, the 1987 D pennies, the 1984 pennies, the 1982 pennies. Examine every single one, because any of them could be hiding a fortune. Remember the stories we've talked about today. The school teacher who found an $18 million penny in a roll from her bank. The young man who inherited a jar of coins and discovered a $24 million treasure. The janitor who almost threw away a $45 million coin. And Margaret Johnson, who almost cashed in $64 million for face value. These are real stories about real people who made real discoveries. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find one of these incredible treasures. The world of error coin collecting is full of possibility, full of excitement, and full of opportunities for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries. Every penny you receive in change, every roll of coins you get from the bank, every jar of loose change you're sitting around your house could contain a coin worth millions of dollars. And all it takes is a little knowledge, a little patience, and a willingness to look carefully at your coins instead of just spending them. So don't give up, don't get discouraged, and most importantly, don't ever underestimate the value of the coins in your pocket, because one of them just might be your ticket to financial freedom. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey exploring the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. And remember, the next time someone tells you that pennies are worthless, you can tell them about the 1963 D error penny that sold for $64 million and prove them wrong. Now get out there and start checking those coins, because your fortune might be waiting for you in the most unexpected place. Happy hunting! And may you be the next person to discover a life-changing treasure.